Well, welcome back. Today we're looking at a 2005 Ford Freestyle. It's got a slight coolant leak, very slow. Just can't notice anything on the ground, nothing leaking, dripping on the ground. But I had it in here about a month and a half ago. Noticed it was a little low, not much. Filled it up when I was doing some other work to it, and came back today. It's a friend of mine who owns it, and it was down low again, so we're going to try to find out where this is leaking and see if we can fix it. So I just started off by doing some visual inspection, kind of looking at the hoses, looking for anywhere that could see that might make it pretty evident where it was leaking. And what I found, this might be a little difficult to show you here, but I'll try to, is down here, the thermostat housing. It's kind of hard to see. I'll give you some light here, so I can get a light in there to show you what's going on. And I'll show you from over here. If you look down at those fittings in there, it looks like it's leaking. Not a lot, but I see trails from antifreeze up above even towards the top of the thermostat. So I think that's the first thing I'm going to look at. I'm going to actually pull the air box off, and it goes to the throttle body. They'll give me a lot more clearance to look at this and see, get a better shot at what's going on. And I think that's probably going to be our leak. I think it's just this hose right here. So it's leaking out the bottom, running down that rib right there, and down the side. So if we're lucky, I'm going to clean this off with brake clean. I'm going to take a look at that hose, that clamp on that hose, and hopefully that will be it. That's where we're going to start. I don't want to open this thing up and have to take this thermostat housing all apart and all these hoses off of it if I don't need to. So I believe it's that front hose that's leaking, and that might just be an easy fix. It's kind of why visual inspection, and it's really easy to kind of skip that. A lot of times you have it get in your mind what you think it is, and you kind of can bypass some real simple things. It's like not checking fuses. You got a bad fuse and you can't figure out, and you forget that you want to check the simple stuff first. So I'm going to tighten that hose up, and let's see if it fixes it. Just using this to clean it, because it'll clean it off and it'll evaporate pretty quick. Spray it all down. Really good. And just speed up the drying process now. Okay, so I've taken this top radiator hose and I've tightened that because that was a little loose. And the bottom one was actually, I didn't like the way the clamp looked on it. So I made sure there was no pressure in the system. And I just loosened that clamp a little bit so I could move the hose and move the clamp a little bit. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm just kind of readjusting that clamp. It's right on the end of the hose. I don't like to see that because it shouldn't be right on the end of the hose. The hose should be, you know, like this. There's about a 1/4 inch past it. That bottom clamp is right on the end of the hose. It's not the way it should be. I don't want that causing an issue, so I'm going to adjust that clamp at the same time. Just move it down to where it should be. So if you look at that, if you look down at that bottom hose coming into the thermostat right here, right, try to get my arm out of the way right there, that clamp was right up on the end of that hose, right even with it, and I don't like to see that. You should have a gap in there. You see how this one's got about a 1/4 inch or so, and the hose is sticking past it. So this hose on the bottom, I don't believe it was leaking, but it was also pushed down on this fitting about another 1/4 inch. It wasn't all the way up to the stop. So I just loosened this clamp a little bit, pushed the hose up to where it should be, and then slid the clamp down. So there's about a 1/4 inch, and you can feel the inner fitting. This plastic housing is out here, and it's got a little, it sticks, it's a bump in it basically all the way around that'll hold it on. So I just readjusted that one at the same time. I'll clean this one more time with some more brake clean, and then we'll just run this and see if it leaks anymore. Hopefully it won't. If not, and it does leak, it's probably going to leak on the O-ring gasket. This might be an easy fix. This is kind of the ones I like. Okay, so I've resprayed this down with some more brake clean just to clean it really good. I'm going to put this back together temporarily, hook it back up, run it, let the car come up to temperature, let it get up to pressure, and check it again to make sure that that was it. If not, We'll see if this O-ring's leaking, and we'll deal with that if we have to. Start it up, see how it does. Let this come up to temperature, took it out, drove around for a couple minutes, and I thought I might get away with just tightening that hose and clamp on the upper and lower, and they are not leaking anymore. As you can see, it's dry up here where it was wet before, but you can see that seam right on the between the upper and lower part of that thermostat housing right there. See if I can get a shot at this, get a light here that would help me or help you. Let's try it this way. Alright, so that seam right there between the upper and lower, ouch, on my hand, is leaking. And if you could see around that back, this bolt back here, that one in the back corner back there, it's hard to see this, I think, on camera. See if I can get a close up, if it'll focus on me, maybe. Well, right around it, you can see there's a little bit of antifreeze, just a little bit coming out around it. So inside of that housing is an O-ring. So that O-ring must be, this car's got over 200,000 miles on it. I don't believe it's ever been changed. It's got a Ford thermostat housing. You can see it on the side of it, Ford Motor Company. I don't believe it's ever been out of there. So we're going to let this cool down. We're going to have to drain it. I did pick up a new O-ring when I was out because I thought I might need one. So we're going to do a new O-ring for that thermostat. Guess I pulled the air box back out here because I had to get at the thermostat, which is right down in here to replace that O-ring. This is the bottom of the air box right here, and there's just two protrusions here that push down into a couple of rubber grommets. So once you get this bolt off, which is up on the front side, you can just pull this up and it'll pull right out of there. So just pull it out, set it aside for now. I'm going to drain this first. Our driver's side we're looking at. So looking down along the front driver's side front driver's side radiator. You can see I got my pan down there, but right down in there is a white hex-shaped drain. That's the petcock for the radiator. I don't know if you can see that well or not, but it's white. Everything else is black plastic, so you just need to get a socket or a wrench on it. I find it's easier to get it to it from the top. You can get to it from the bottom, but I just pull the air box out of the way. You got to get that out of there anyway to get at that thermostat housing. And we're going to open that up and drain it. So I wanted to show you one other thing. Right down here, and I know this is hard to see, there's not a lot of room up here, but hopefully right there you can see that white piece of plastic's hex shape. You can get a socket on that. I'll let you know what size it is, I don't know yet. But right on the side of that is the drain, and it points to the left. And what I've done is attach a tube to it, a piece of hose that goes down in my drain pan to keep it from going all over the place. If you have a piece of hose you can do that with, you'll make a lot less mess and everything will get in the pan. So I'm going to take this off. I think that's 3/4, but I'm going to find out in a minute. So now this is drained pretty well. I've gotten as much out of it as I can right now. There are 3 bolts here on the housing. They look like they're 8mm bolts. That'll release this hose and this lower thermostat fitting, which should have that O-ring in it. I believe that's all we'll need to take apart to get this out of here. So these are 8mm. 3 bolts. This is just a 1/4 inch. This plastic has a metal insert, but they're plastic. I don't really want to put a lot of torque on them. It should come out of here without too much problem. A little tough to get to, but not too bad. And I am using an extension without a wobble extension, so you can get to them with a straight extension. Barely, but you can, so you don't need a wobble for these. I'll go with the other one that's hard to see. It did come out. Well, I know where that socket went. I heard it hit the pan. It's in the antifreeze. You see that bottom hose is loose now. It's moving around. See what we got here. There it goes. Where'd that thermostat go? Just took off on me. Disappeared. Ran and hid. But I'm looking inside this, trying to determine what is in the middle of that thing. It looks really, really strange, and I don't know what that is. It looks almost like an O-ring in there. So in the middle of that, I don't know what that came out of a gasket or something that got flushed into the middle of that thermostat. It was sitting in there. Look at this. Don't really like that, the way that looks. Well, I'm talking to you and I'm not even looking at what I'm showing you. But here, in this thermostat, it's all curled up. I think, yeah, look at that. So, here's a problem, right? I'm wondering what that piece of rubber was in there. It's a piece of this gasket. You can see it's just all eaten up and it's no good. So we're gonna have to put a new thermostat in here. This has definitely got a problem. Now I have an O-ring. I'm curious to see. I'm gonna have to get this thermostat tomorrow. But here's the replacement O-ring that they gave me, right? Well, let me back up here. Like talking to you and telling you all this stuff and can't see them. So here's the replacement O-ring right here. And it's probably the right replacement for this. I'm not going to open this yet because I don't know if a new thermostat will come with an O-ring. It may already have one. And I'm trying to think, yeah, water shouldn't get past outside of that. That's probably what's happening here. I believe what's probably happening is this O-ring is just pretty beat. It's a little brittle, a little flattened out, and water is getting out a little past it. And it's this is the original thermostat, or it's Motorcraft at least. It's a Ford thermostat for sure. So 180 degree. It says right on it, 180 degrees. We're gonna have to get a new thermostat tomorrow, and we'll see if it comes with an O-ring. If it doesn't, this is the one we'll use with it. If it does, we'll just take this one back. But this is pretty brittle. Doesn't feel too bad, but I'll show you. I know you can't feel it, but I can actually feel this, and it is a little brittle. I'm guessing it's just leaking past it, and that's the little bit of leak we're seeing. Interesting. But 212,000 miles or so, original equipment, except for that seal there, and the seals, thermostat's still good. Clean too. Been taking care of this thing, changing the antifreeze when they need to. No corrosion really or anything in there. It looks real clean. It's just gasket's gone bad on it. So I was able to go out and get the new thermostat this morning. There's the part number, or stamp part number at least, 14138. Have the new O-ring. It seals it, which is what was leaking. That part number is 35489. So these bolts obviously are facing down, and two of them are hard to get at. They're a little tough to get at. So I'm going to show you a little trick that I use. You could do this with a magnet if you have one, which would work as well. What I like to do for these is just take a little piece of paper towel or a shop rag. I have a piece of shop rag. I'm just going to, I tear a little piece off of here and stick it on top of the socket like that. And take a bolt, put the bolt in there, and that paper, just that shop rag being in there a little bit is just enough so it won't fall out of the socket. So when you have to reach down into something, you can have that bolt, it'll stay put for you until you get it started in the hole. you can see how this housing that comes from the bottom sticks up maybe an inch, inch and a quarter. That's what seals against that O-ring. It keeps it from leaking. The old O-ring just kind of got brittle, and so it was able to leak past it. This thermostat point faces down. That O-ring goes underneath of it, and then the bottom part of this thermostat housing seals it. I'm going to put that in place. Hopefully get it to hold it in there. It's kind of tough to hold it in there. Get that O-ring, make sure that O-ring's seated correctly. And then push that into place because it does not want to stay in there initially. So you see there's a little bit of a gap here between the upper and lower housing. That's kind of what I expect because that O-ring should be squeezed a little bit when it's tight. So I'm just going to stick a bolt in there for a second till I get started. And get one of these screwed in, one of the three, and it will hold it in place. New O-ring gaskets in. I'm going to fill this back up through the overflow here. And as you see, I have this out. I'll show it to you. I can find it here. It's sitting here somewhere. There it is. So this is the top to the kind of a relief valve to the top of the thermostat housing. It goes in here. It's got a little O-ring on it. Push it down and it clips into place. With this clip, just clip it around it, holds it in place, seals it. I'm going to leave that out for now as I fill this, and then I'll put that back on. I'm just going to clean this off with a little brake clean real quick on the thermostat housing. Makes it easier to see if there's a leak. I'm going to put this air box back in. Like I said before, this just pushes down some rubber grommets. I'm going to spray these grommets with a little bit of, actually I'll just spray these because they're just a little bit of silicone spray. Just makes them go in easy. Put this back in place. I know you can't see this, but I can't really show it to you. Kind of tough to see. There it goes. Slide that back in. So we're going to start filling this. We'll keep an eye on this. You can't see it right now, but we're going to keep an eye on this fitting on the top of the thermostat housing. We should see, we don't want it to overflow that. So we'll make sure it doesn't. This is the exciting part. Fill it back up, run it, let it come up to temperature, let it come up to pressure. Make sure it bleeds the air out of the system and you have it filled up with the correct amount. And then we'll check to see if it leaks, and hopefully it will not. So I've got a funnel. I've got a funnel in the overflow container, and this funnel has a strainer in it. It's got a real fine strainer. It's made for diesel oil. It's a real fine stainless steel mesh. I always like to use these if I'm, this antifreeze is not old, but anything that gets in there off the car, dirt or anything, will get trapped by that screen and won't make it back into the system. You can kind of hear it bubbling out of there. Now it's overflowing. Push that back in so it doesn't leak all over the place. Don't forget the clip. Don't forget this clip that has to go back on to hold it in place. That's pretty much it. Initially thought it might get off a little easy this time. Hardly ever happens. And it was leaking from a hose clamp on the upper radiator hose where it connects to the thermostat housing. But after fixing that, found out that the actual thermostat was leaking. There's an O-ring that was leaking a little bit. It was a little brittle. The car has a lot of miles, over 200,000 miles on it. But pretty simple job. You can do that under an hour from start to finish, you know, between draining the radiator and making sure it doesn't leak. Hopefully that helps you out if you need to do this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like the videos, subscribe below. Thanks for watching.